Hey, I'm Bob with Laguna Tools, or around here they call me Router Bob. I got an exciting new Laguna CNC router to show you. It's the IQ2. We introduced the original IQ last year and it's tremendously successful. But as things progressed, we found some other features we wanted to develop into the machine, and that's what led to the IQ2. One of the more obvious features is we added extra Z height, so now we have 6 inches of Z on the machine. Now that's important because it gives you more flexibility in what you can do with the machine. If you're doing 3D surfacing, you can use taller surfaces. If you're doing fixturing, there's more room for clamps and those kinds of things. So we thought that was a really great benefit. Let me show you another big change we made on this. If you notice this, as I jog the spindle over, it doesn't stop at the edge of the table. We actually increase the travel so that the spindle will actually come in front of the machine. That gives us the ability to do a lot of unusual things. For instance, machining on the end of a part that you can't do with a flat table machine. So we thought that was a really benefit. And there's some products that we're currently developing that you'll see in the near future. When we developed the IQ, we wanted to use some of the same technology that we use in the Smart Shop. For instance, the frame is a tubular welded steel frame, just like the Smart Shop. We're using contour guide rails on some of the parts of the machine. We're using precision ball screws. Once again, all of those are the same quality components that we use on the larger machine. We wanted this to be just a smaller version of a Smart Shop. Okay, we also put a liquid cool spindle on these machines, and there's a reason for that. Liquid cool spindles can basically be run continuously, and when I mean continuously, I mean for hours and hours, and that's not uncommon at all when you're doing 3D surfacing. In fact, one of the demos we run at a show takes 8 hours, and an air-cooled spindle will typically get hot after a couple hours. Liquid cooled spindles will run on and on. When we configured the IQ series machines, we wanted to think about where they're going to go. Sometimes they go in home shops, sometimes they go in businesses. The basic machine itself is a tabletop or bench top design, which means you can put it on a bench, a stand, whatever. That gives you a lot of flexibility. We also put the electrical components in a separate box and put a fairly long cable on there so you can position that depending on what the needs are in your shop, and the same goes for the control. In this case, this is a Pro model, so it has the B&R controller, and this can be positioned wherever it's convenient in your shop. It doesn't have to just be right here. Now that we've kind of gone over some of the basic components, let's make something with the machine. What I want to show you though is a way to make parts nested out of a sheet without a vacuum table, and that's called eco-nest by some of the companies, or economical nesting. Not everybody has a vacuum table. Although you could configure a vacuum table for a machine like this, typically that's not the case. But there are times when you want to cut parts out of the nest. So I've got a neat setup to show you how to do that. All right, we offer the IQ machine in 2 configurations. One is a standard configuration, one's a Pro configuration. Now, I'm asked a lot, how do I know which one to buy? Which one makes the most sense? Well, let's look at what are the differences in them. First off, the machine frame, the drives, those are all the same. The ball screw's the same, the guide rail, all that's the same. The parts that are produced, the accuracy, it's not going to make any difference. The main difference between the standard model and the Pro series is the machine control. The standard model, which is less expensive, has the handheld control. We use that same control on the Swift machines and the larger D-series routers, and it's really easy to use. It's very dependable. Right? The Pro series comes with the B&R controller. And this is basically the same controller technology we just introduced for the Smart Shop. It's been tremendously successful. Another feature of this control is remote diagnostics. Now here's what that means to you. If you have a problem with the machine, for instance, the control knows what's going on, and you can go to any screen. We can connect remotely to it through the network. We can view the diagnostics. We can tell if a switch is working or not. We can tell if something's unplugged. So it diagnoses a defective component. So if you have a problem, it's much easier to get to the bottom of it and get it resolved. You know, another consideration is this machine really what I call intro to CNC for you? Do you really intend to use a larger machine, but you want to take a small step first? Now, if that's the case, if that's where you fit, then I'd probably go with the Pro Series, because once you master this control, you've also mastered the control for the Smart Shop. So it's a great way to get your feet wet without the capital expenditure that you'd have on a full-blown Smart Shop. Or maybe you already own a Smart Shop, but you need more capacity, or there's a lot of small parts that you run that would certainly fit on a 2x3 table. In that case, the IQ Pro makes sense because, once again, it's the same control you're used to using on your Smart Shop. Now, what I want to do next is I want to cut something out on the IQ to kind of show you a new concept. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to be able to cut things that are nested. Although this isn't a nesting machine, it doesn't have a traditional vacuum table, but I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to start out, this is VCarve Pro, which you see me use a lot. It's probably my favorite program. I've started out and I've started a job, and this material is 2 feet by 3 foot. Now where did that come from? That came from, that's what the size of the table is, or the work envelope is pretty much, the work envelope's a little bigger than that because it hangs over the front. But on the table I can roughly get a piece of material 2 foot by 3 foot. So that's where I started. And the material's a 1/2 inch thick. It happens to be Baltic birch because that's a nice material to work with. So that's where that started. Okay, now I've already got some parts drawn on here and I've got them turned off so we can see them. Now what this is a little rocking chair. You see this a lot at shows. It's cut out of Baltic birch. It gets put together. It's for a child. It's a really, really nice product. And so I wanted to start with this to show you how the IQ works. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I need to nest these parts. VCarve Pro has a feature called True Shape Nesting that's really a nice little feature. And so let's use that. So the way I start, here's all my parts. And now on parts where you have more than one piece of geometry, those are grouped together because we want to group the whole nest. Same thing here. So, all right, so the first thing I'm going to do is turn on nesting, and that's this icon. It comes up here. Okay, I'm going to do my machining with a 1/4 inch bit. In fact, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch compression bit. I'm going to add an additional spacing, a minimum spacing between the tool paths of 1/10 of an inch. I'm going to leave a border gap. A border gap basically determines how close to the edge. Think about this as I want to get rid of the factory edge on the plywood. Okay, I'm going to allow it to rotate parts. Since the material's the same on the top and bottom, it doesn't matter if it mirrors. It really probably won't make any difference with these. So the first thing I'm going to do is select all of these, and I'm going to hit number of copies I need, 1. It says that, and then I'm going to hit nest, and let's see what comes out. All right, now we've got 2 nests. Here's the first nest, and then if I double click here, here's the second nest. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to probably modify those just a little bit. For instance, let's go back to the first nest, and I'll probably just move all those over a little bit. So what if we select all those? Whoops. In fact, I can probably close that and just say center that, all right? That gives me a little bit better spacing, so I like that. Okay, let's do the same one over here. Let's take these, maybe move them over a little bit, and I'll actually just move them this way with the arrow keys up and down, just to get it in the center. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to save this drawing. Okay, let's take this first nest. That looks pretty good. I've got it positioned right. Now, I'm going to go through these parts that were grouped and ungroup them. Once again, I grouped them, remember, so that all the geometry got moved together. So those are ungrouped, and I think these others are fine. Okay? But let's talk about how are we going to hold this. We don't have a vacuum table. If we were at a trade show with a bigger machine, we'd hold it with vacuum. We don't have a vacuum table. So what I want to do is I actually want to find some areas around here where it's scrap material and drill some holes and screw the part down. So that's the first step of the process. So maybe we put one here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and maybe right there. And we'll put, that's probably enough. We'll put one more there just to be safe. So those are actually circles, so those will be drilled out as holes. So the concept then is that we'll have a spoil board made out of MDF that we'll fly cut so that it's flat. We'll lay this panel on there. We'll probably clamp it down to start with or tape it gradually and just drill the holes and then take wood screws and screw the panel down. So that's the first part of this eco-nest method, is to secure the panel. You could use the T-slot clamps if you wanted to. I prefer screwing down to the top. Okay, once we get that done, then we're ready to start tool pathing, and what we're going to do when we tool path, when we cut these out, we're going to leave tabs. And tabs are just little segments of wood that get left, and so when we're finished, this is still one piece all connected. So parts can't move because they're part of a larger piece that's being held down with screws. That's the concept behind economical nesting or eco-nest. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is actually do the tool pathing, so let's come over to the tool path side. Now, I've actually saved a template for tool pathing. If you haven't tried this, it's really great. Load, there's my template. Now when you save that template with tool pathing, it has all this stuff already set up, so I don't have to worry about redoing it. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up the one that says 5mm drill. So I'll double click that, and then I'll just select those holes. And that's going to cause it to drill holes at those locations. And I don't really have to drill all the way through, I just need to get the screw started. Because this is just telling me where it's safe to drill through without worrying about hitting anything. So we'll cut through, we'll drill about 0.3, and I just hit calculate. And then once again with VCarve, you can always do your simulation and make sure you validate what you think. That looks pretty good. Okay, now let's look at the geometries that are what I call inside, the internal shapes we need to cut. So let's open this operation up. Okay, we'll pick all of them, make sure they're all picked. Now there's something else I want to do here, and that is I want to put tabs in there. So what I've told it is I want to add tabs. Now the tab thickness, I'm going to make it about 0.1, okay? And about a 1/2 inch wide, and I'm going to make 3D ones, so they're really little triangles. And it's easy to cut those loose, so we'll take a utility knife to separate those later. We'll hit Edit Tabs, okay? I'm going to hit Add Tabs. It automatically puts the tabs in there. I hit Calculate. Now those parts are all tabbed together. So when we cut those out, those little pieces are not going to go anywhere. They'll still be held in place. Okay, so now let's go back to our last shape, the shapes which are the outside. So we'll open up Profile. Once again, we'll select what we want to cut with our outside profile. I'm holding the Shift key down to make multiple selections. Once again, we need to go in and edit the tabs. This time I put around each part, I ask it to put 3 tabs. We'll add those tabs, and we'll calculate. And now there's those tool paths. So let's reset our preview. We'll preview all the tool paths. So hopefully that's what we'll get. Okay, now that we've got the tool pathing ready, we've done our nesting, now let's output code. So I click on this icon to let us output code. The first thing I want to do is drill the holes. So I'm going to select the tool path that says 5mm. Our post is correctly selected. I hit Save Tool Path, and I'm just going to call this 1, which tells me run this first. This is our first operation. And then 5mm, which tells me it's a 5mm drill. That's all you have to do, and save that. Okay, now let's unselect that. The other 2 operations are done with the compression bit. So that's our second program. So that becomes 2 for second operation, P for point, 2,5, C for compression. That's all it takes. So now those programs are ready to go to the machine. I'll transfer those to I could either transfer them to a USB or I can transfer them to a wireless network, depending on which configuration machine you have. And I've already done the other nest ahead of time. So we have the tool path already for that. Now let's go out to the shop and let's run this. Okay, I output the code, I put it on the machine so the programs are ready to go. We've also attached a piece of 3/4 MDF that's our sacrificial board, and it's part of the EcoNest system that we're using. Now I've taped this board down with double stick tape. The machines also come with T-slots for use with the T-slot table. I prefer not to use them for this operation because I don't like things sticking up above the table. We also have dust collector shrouds that are optional. I'm not going to use it for the video so that you can see the machining more clearly. Okay, now our next step is to actually drill our holes, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to use a 1/4 inch bit. We're just marking the spot so we know where to put the screws in to hold the table down. But before we do that, we need to touch off the actual tool. So we have automatic tool touch off on the machine. And all I have to really do is go to the Tools, Execute Touch Off. And there's a little puck that goes on here. And that's all there is to it. Before we drill the holes, let me tell you what we did earlier was we ran a strip of tape on each edge just to hold the piece in place while the drilling took place. Okay, let's run the program. Okay, we've got our plywood panel screwed down to the table, and let's see what happens. The program selected. Okay, let's see how this came out. Everything looked good when we were cutting it. I just took the screws out. Now we've got a little bit of tape on each edge that we used prior to drilling the holes. That looks pretty good. Now if this worked right, all these parts should come out together, and it looks pretty good. Yeah, now the reason being, these are still tabbed together. So there's some thin tabs that hold these together. Now here's a really good example. When we tool path that we said put 3 tabs on these outside shapes, there's 1, 2, 3, and you see they broke apart very, very easily. That's because they're triangular, and then all we do is take a utility knife and trim that off. Now these inside ones, I only put 2 tabs because they're small, and they're still connected, you can see them. So that really worked. That enabled us to do a nest that we would traditionally do with a vacuum table without it, using our Econo nest system. Okay, this is a second nest. Now I wanted to show you something. Once you get it cut out, these are the little tabs that get left, and they break, normally they break free, and then you just take a little utility knife and trim those. And you could also, you might even vary the tabs and make them thinner so they're even easier to trim. So I've already done that to the other parts. And in a minute, we'll check and see if these fit. Boy, that's really easy. It's very simple. And this is Baltic birch plywood. This is very good material. Okay, let's put the I've got the chair just about put together. Let's put the last piece in. Wow, that came out great. There's a nice little child's rocker that you could put a doll in, or a grandchild, or a daughter, or a niece, or a nephew. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. We tried to show you the IQ2, which is a great new machine, but I also wanted to show you a different way to do things, a way to do things with a nest when you didn't have a vacuum table, using the Eco Nest system. If you have any questions, call us at Laguna Tools at 800-234-1976, or you can go to our website, www.lagunatools.com. Thanks for watching.